When the most powerful woman in the city placed a signed check in front of Daniel Reed, she expected him to thank her instead. The single father slowly pushed it back across the table. "I'm sorry, Miss Bennett," he said, "but my children are not a problem you can solve with money." For the first time in years, CEO Victoria Bennett had no idea what to say. Daniel was 37 years old and raising 2 children alone. His son Noah was 9, quiet and thoughtful. His daughter, Sophie, was 6 and asked so many questions that Daniel often joked she should become a lawyer. They lived in a small apartment above an old bakery on the edge of the city. The building was clean, but the heating failed often. The kitchen ceiling leaked when it rained, and the stairs made a loud sound with every step. Daniel's wife, Emily, had died 4 years earlier after a short illness. Since then, he had learned how to braid Sophie's hair, pack school lunches, wash clothes after midnight, and hide his fear whenever money became tight. He worked as the maintenance supervisor at Bennett Grand Hotel, one of the finest hotels in the city. The job did not pay much, but it gave him regular hours and medical insurance for the children. Every morning, Daniel woke before sunrise. He cooked oatmeal, checked homework, searched for missing shoes, and walked the children to Mrs. Alvarez's apartment downstairs. She watched them before school and again after class until Daniel returned. "Dad," Sophie asked one morning, "our rich hotel's warmer than our house." Daniel paused while buttoning her coat. "Yes," he said with a smile, "but our house has better people." Noah laughed softly, but Daniel noticed his son looking toward the old heater. That same week, the hotel began preparing for an important business conference. Victoria Bennett, the company's CEO, arrived from New York to supervise everything personally. Victoria was 35, confident, intelligent, and known for expecting perfection. Employees stood straighter when she entered a room. Managers lowered their voices. Even senior executives checked their clothes before meeting her. Daniel first spoke to her when the lights failed in the main ballroom 2 hours before a major event. Several managers were panicking. "The guests will arrive soon," one of them said. "We need an outside team." Daniel examined the electrical panel. "We don't have time for an outside team," he replied. "The fault is in the backup control." Victoria stepped closer. "Can you fix it?" Daniel looked at her directly. "Yes, but everyone needs to stop touching the switches and let me work." The room became silent. One manager looked offended, but Victoria raised her hand. "Do what he says." Daniel worked for 40 minutes without stopping. He opened the control panel, replaced a damaged relay, and carefully restored power section by section. When the ballroom lights finally returned, the staff clapped. Daniel simply closed his toolbox. "You saved tonight's event." Victoria said, "I did my job." She studied him for a moment. Most employees tried to impress her. Daniel did not. Over the next few days, Victoria noticed him everywhere. He repaired a broken refrigerator in the kitchen. He helped an elderly guest whose wheelchair had become stuck near the elevator. He stayed late to fix a leaking pipe, then refused overtime because he had already promised Noah he would attend a school meeting. "You're leaving during conference preparation?" a manager asked sharply. "My shift is finished. This hotel needs you. My son needs me too." Victoria heard the conversation from across the lobby. Later that evening, she found Daniel standing outside the school gym, listening as Noah's teacher explained that his grades had dropped. "He seems distracted," the teacher said. "He is a bright child, but lately he has trouble focusing." Daniel looked worried. "Is someone bothering him?" "No, I think he is concerned about things at home." On the walk back, Daniel asked Noah what was wrong. The boy kept his eyes on the pavement. "Nothing. Your teacher says you're worried." Noah was silent for several seconds. Then he asked, "Are we going to lose our apartment?" Daniel stopped walking. "What makes you think that?" "I heard you talking to the landlord." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had been 2 months behind on rent after Sophie needed emergency dental treatment. He knelt in front of Noah. "Look at me. You do not need to carry adult worries, but you carry everything." Daniel placed both hands on his son's shoulders. "That is my job. Your job is to be nice." The next morning, Victoria called Daniel to her office. She knew about his late rent because the hotel's finance manager had mentioned that Daniel had requested an advance and been refused. Victoria pointed to the chair across from her desk. "Sit down." Daniel remained standing. "Is something wrong?" "No, I want to offer you a new position." She explained that she wanted him to become property operations manager for 3 hotels. The salary was almost 3 times what he currently earned. The company would also provide a car and a larger apartment near the city center. Daniel stared at the papers. "That's generous. You earned it." Then Victoria continued, "The position requires travel, 2 or 3 weeks each month, sometimes more." Daniel's expression changed. "My children would stay here. We can arrange professional childcare. The company will cover the cost." Daniel looked down at the offer again. The money could solve everything: the rent, the heater, Noah's school worries, Sophie's dental bills. But it would also mean missing breakfast, school meetings, bedtime stories, and the small moments his children depended on. "I can't accept," he said. Victoria thought she had misheard him. "This position could change your life. It would change my children's lives." too, for the better. Not if they lose their father. Most of the month. Victoria leaned back. Many parents travel for work. I know, and I respect them, but my children already lost one parent. I won't ask them to live without the other one. Victoria looked frustrated. You are struggling financially. Yes, you may lose your apartment. Yes, and you are still refusing. Daniel folded the papers and placed them on her desk. I need more money, Ms. Bennett, but I need to remain the father my children trust. Victoria watched him leave. She should have been irritated instead. Something inside her shifted. For years, people had accepted every offer she made. They praised her, agreed with her, and told her exactly what she wanted to hear. Daniel Reed had looked at the biggest opportunity of his life and chosen his children, and for reasons she did not yet understand. Victoria could not stop thinking about him. Daniel's refusal spread quietly through the hotel. Some employees admired him. Others thought he was foolish. You could have hired a full-time nanny, his friend Marcus said during lunch. You could have moved the kids into a better neighborhood. They don't need a better neighborhood more than they need me. Marcus shook his head. Love doesn't pay rent. Daniel looked at his unfinished sandwich. No, but money doesn't sit beside a scared child at night. Still, Daniel's choice became harder to defend when his landlord delivered a final notice. He had 14 days to pay what he owed. That evening, Daniel sat at the kitchen table after the children were asleep. Bills covered the surface. He added the numbers 3 times, hoping the answer would somehow change. It did not. He sold his old guitar, the one Emily had given him on their 2nd anniversary. He took weekend repair jobs. He stopped buying coffee and began skipping lunch, but the amount was still not enough. Victoria noticed that he looked exhausted one afternoon. She found him repairing a broken door near the hotel restaurant. You refused the management position, she said, but there may be another way. Daniel stood and wiped his hands. What way? I could give you a personal loan. No, you haven't even heard the terms. I don't borrow money from my employer, then consider it a bonus for what? For the ballroom repair. For everything you do here. Daniel gave her a tired look. That repair was part of my job. Victoria crossed her arms. Why do you make everything difficult? Because help should not come with confusion. What confusion? Daniel hesitated. You are my CEO. You barely know me. You keep offering me money, apartments, and solutions. I don't know what you expect in return. Victoria's face changed. I expect nothing, maybe not now. She looked hurt, though she tried to hide it. I am not trying to buy you. I didn't say you were. You didn't need to. Daniel lowered his voice. I'm sorry, but I need to solve this myself. Victoria walked away without answering that night. She remained in her office long, after everyone else had left. She told herself Daniel was stubborn, unreasonable, proud, but the truth was more uncomfortable. She had offered him money because money was the only way. She knew how to help. Her own father had built Bennett Hotels from a small family business into an international company. He had taught Victoria that every problem had a price and every person had a number. When she was 10, he had missed her school performance but sent a diamond bracelet when she was 16. He had forgotten her birthday but gave her a car. When her mother left, he sent Victoria to the best boarding school in the country. She had grown up surrounded by comfort and completely alone. Daniel's refusal forced her to see something she had avoided for years. He did not fear being poor as much as he feared becoming absent a few days later. Victoria saw Sophie sitting alone in the hotel lobby. The little girl had a backpack beside her and tears in her eyes. Victoria hurried over. Are you Daniel's daughter? Sophie nodded. Double quotes, where is your father? He's fixing something downstairs. Mrs. Alvarez got sick, so Dad brought us here. Noah is doing homework in the staff room. Victoria sat beside her. Why are you crying? Sophie looked embarrassed. My class has family day tomorrow. That sounds nice. We have to bring something that reminds us of our family. What are you bringing? Sophie opened her backpack and took out an old photograph. It showed Daniel, Emily, Noah, and baby Sophie sitting on a beach. My mom, she whispered, but I don't want Dad to be sad. Victoria looked at the photo. You miss her every day. Dad says missing someone means love has nowhere to go. Victoria swallowed. That sounds like something your father would say. Sophie studied her carefully. Do you like my dad? Victoria almost laughed from surprise. Why would you ask that? Because you look at him like teachers look at hard questions. Before Victoria could answer, Daniel appeared. Sophie, I told you to stay in the staff room. She was safe. Victoria said. Daniel picked up the backpack. Thank you. Sophie looked between them. Miss Bennett likes you. Daniel nearly dropped the bag. Sophie would. I asked her. Victoria stood, trying not to smile. Daniel looked uncomfortable. We should go. As he turned away, Victoria called his name. Daniel. He stopped. I'm sorry for the way I offered help. He looked back at her. I'm sorry for the way I answered. It was the first honest moment between them. But the next morning, everything became worse. Daniel arrived at work and was called into the manager's office. A luxury watch belonging to a guest had disappeared from a hotel suite. Security records showed Daniel had entered the room to repair the air conditioner. The guest accused him of theft. I didn't take anything. Daniel said. The manager avoided his eyes. Until the investigation is complete. You are suspended. Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. How long? We don't know. I have children. I'm sorry. The police questioned him but did not arrest him. There was no proof, only suspicion. Still, Daniel left the hotel carrying his toolbox while employees watched. Outside, Victoria caught up with him. I know you didn't do it. Daniel kept walking. Daniel, wait, he turned sharply. My rent is due in 6 days. I've been suspended without pay, and now everyone thinks I'm a thief. I can stop this. How? I can order the suspension removed. And if you do that before the investigation is finished, people will say you protected me. I don't care what people say. I do. Because I have 2 children who carry my name. Victoria's voice softened. Let me stand beside you. Daniel looked at her, exhausted and afraid. Why? She had no prepared answer. Because she admired him. Because she cared about his children. Because every time he walked into a room, she felt less alone. Finally, she said the truth. Because you mattered to me. Daniel stared at her. Before he could respond, his phone rang. It was Noah's school. Sophie had collapsed during class at the hospital. Doctors explained that she had a serious infection and needed to stay for treatment. Daniel sat beside her bed, holding her small hand. Noah slept in a chair near the window. The hospital asked for an insurance approval, but because Daniel was suspended, there was a delay in confirming his employment. Benefits. Victoria arrived quietly, spoke to the hospital office, and offered to cover everything. Personally. Daniel followed her into the hallway.
No.
She turned, shocked. Daniel, this is your daughter. I know, then stop fighting me. I can't owe you this. Her eyes filled with anger and pain. This is not about owing me. Then what is it about? It's about the fact that I love you. The words came out before she could stop them. The hallway became silent. Daniel looked at her as if she had struck him. Victoria's voice broke. I know this is the wrong time. I know you never asked for it. But I love the way you protect your children. I love that you say no when everyone else says yes. I love that you make me feel like being present matters more than being powerful. Daniel's eyes filled with emotion. But he stepped back. I can't do this now. Victoria nodded. Ashamed. I understand. She turned and walked away. Through the glass door, Daniel saw Sophie sleeping beneath a white blanket. He looked down at the hospital papers in his hand. For the first time since Emily's death, he felt completely helpless. And the one person who had offered to stand beside him was the person he had just pushed away. Daniel spent the night beside Sophie. By morning, her fever had started to fall. Noah woke and moved closer to his father. Is Sophie going to be okay? The doctor says she's getting better. Noah nodded, then looked toward the empty hallway. Where is Miss Bennett? Daniel hesitated. She went home. She likes us. Daniel looked at his son. She likes you and Sophie. No, she likes all of us. Daniel rubbed his tired face. Things are complicated. Noah spoke quietly. Mom used to say people make things complicated when they're scared. Daniel turned toward him. You remember that? I remember more than you think. Later that morning, Marcus called from the hotel. They found the watch. Daniel sat up. Where the guest's teenage son took it. He wanted to sell it. The family admitted everything. Daniel closed his eyes. The suspension removed. Full pay restored. Victoria demanded a written apology from management and the guest. Daniel felt relief, but it was followed by another emotion. Victoria had defended him, even after he rejected her help and pushed away her feelings. That afternoon, the hotel manager came to the hospital with Daniel's back pay, an apology letter, and confirmation that his insurance was active. Sophie's treatment was fully covered. Daniel stared at the documents. Did Ms. Bennett arrange this? The manager nodded. She made sure every step followed company policy. She said you would not accept special treatment. Daniel almost smiled for once. Victoria had understood exactly what he needed, not rescue. Fairness. Sophie returned home 2 days later. The apartment was cold. The rent was still overdue, and Daniel was still tired, but she was safe that evening. Someone knocked on the door. Daniel opened it and found Victoria standing in the hallway. She was not wearing a business suit. She had on a simple coat and held a small bag of groceries. I brought soup, she said, not money. Daniel looked at her for a moment. That's an improvement. She smiled carefully. May I come in? Sophie shouted from the sofa. Yes. Victoria entered. She helped Sophie color pictures at the table. She listened while Noah explained a science project. She ate soup from mismatched bowls and laughed when the old heater made a loud knocking sound. No one treated her like a CEO for the first time in years. She did not feel she had to control the room. After the children went to bed, Daniel and Victoria stood near the kitchen window. I owe you an apology, Daniel said. You don't owe me anything. I judged your help before I understood it, and I tried to solve your life without asking what you needed. Daniel looked down. When Emily died, people kept telling me to move on. They offered babysitters, jobs, advice, even new dates. Everyone wanted to fix us. Victoria listened quietly. But my children didn't need to be fixed, he continued. They needed someone who stayed. I promised myself I would never choose anything that made them feel abandoned again. I understand. No, Daniel said gently. I don't think I understood you. Victoria looked away. My father gave me everything except time. I became successful because I thought success would make me stop needing people. Did it? No. Daniel took a slow breath. What you said at the hospital, you don't have to answer. I'm not ready for someone to step into our lives quickly. I know, but I don't want you to walk out of them either. Victoria looked at him. Daniel continued, if we do this, it has to be slowly. No grand offers. No expensive gifts. No trying to solve every bad day. What am I allowed to do? Show up. A small smile appeared on her face. I can try. In the following weeks, Victoria did exactly that. She came to Sophie's family day and sat in the back while Sophie showed the class the beach photograph she attended Noah's science fair and listened to his full explanation of a homemade water filter that helped Daniel paint the kitchen ceiling after the landlord finally repaired the leak. She made mistakes too. Once, she sent a private car to collect the children from school without asking. Daniel immediately sent it back. Another time she bought Sophie an expensive dress, and Sophie refused to wear it because it was too shiny for running. Victoria slowly learned that love was not measured by price, it was measured by attention. Daniel, I also learned to accept help without feeling weak when Victoria offered him a new role as hotel facilities manager with no travel. He studied the contract carefully. The salary increase was reasonable. The hours were stable. The position allowed him to remain present for the children. This time, he accepted. Why is this offer different? Victoria asked. Because you listened before making it. Months passed. Daniel paid the overdue rent and moved his family into a slightly larger apartment nearby. It was not luxurious, but the heater worked. The windows closed properly, and Sophie finally had space for a small desk. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel and Victoria took the children to the same beach shown in the old family photograph. Noah collected shells. Sophie ran near the water. Daniel stood beside Victoria as the wind moved through her hair. I used to think accepting help meant failing, he said. And I used to think offering money meant caring. He looked at her. We were both wrong. Victoria smiled. That seems to happen when people are afraid. Daniel reached for her hand. She looked down at their fingers, then back at him. Is this slow enough? She asked. He smiled. Yes. Sophie turned from the water and shouted, Are you two finally holding hands? Noah covered his face with embarrassment. Daniel laughed, and Victoria laughed with him. There was no dramatic promise that life would always be easy. Bills would still arrive. Children would still get sick. Work would still bring difficult days. Daniel would still miss Emily, and Victoria would still struggle to believe she could be loved without earning it. But they had found something real. A family was not built by perfect people. It was built by people who stayed, listened, forgave, and kept choosing one another. Life lesson. Real love does not control, purchase, or rescue. It listens, respects, and remains present when life becomes difficult. Emotional question for viewers. Would you choose more money if it meant losing precious time with the people who need you most? Call to action. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more emotional stories about family, courage, and second chances.